Good afternoon and welcome to this year's Governmental Alternative Fuel Fleet Grant Program GAFF webinar. My name is Dawn Blosh and I am the program coordinator. I will be conducting the beginning of the presentation and my colleague Jessica Nunez will cover the application walkthrough closer to the end of the presentation. Today we will go over a high-level overview of the GAFF program. For more details, please refer to the Request for Grant Applications, the RFGA, found on the program's website. During this webinar, all microphones will be muted and cameras will be disabled until the end of the presentation when we will do a Q&A session. Please refrain from asking questions until the end of the presentation. Also, please write down the number of the slide you have a question about so we can refer back to it during the Q&A session. When the presentation is completed, we will stop the recording and give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions. Please use the raise hand function and we will call on you in the order your hands were raised. We will do our best to get to all the questions as time permits. For our agenda today, we will go over some of the GAFF program highlights, touch on program requirements and scoring, and cover the basic grant process. Please note that for this grant round, you can only submit applications via an online portal. Later, Jessica Nunez will provide an application walkthrough for you and talk about the new online portal. Then we will take any questions that you have. GAFF has $4 million available in funding. Funding covers the purchase or lease of new alternative fuel motor vehicles, the purchase, lease, or installation of refueling infrastructure or equipment, or the procurement of fueling services. GAFF is a competitive program where we compare applications against one another and score them for selection after the closing date. There's no advantage to submitting applications as soon as possible, as the scoring criteria is based on how effective the project will be for reducing NOx emissions. There will be about a 2-month window to submit your applications. There are a number of alternative fuels under the GAFF program. Those fuels include compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas, liquefied petroleum gas, hydrogen fuel cells, and electricity, which includes electricity to power fully electric and plug-in hybrid motor vehicles. Eligible applicants include the following: state agencies and political subdivisions, mass transit or school transportation providers, and public entities established to provide public or school transportation services. It is important to note that in order to be eligible, applicants must own and operate a fleet of more than 15 vehicles. Please note, grants will not be awarded to third-party entities to pass on to the owners or operators of the vehicles or equipment. GAFF grants are available statewide. Priority will be given to projects in non-attainment areas and affected counties. A single primary area of use must be designated, and separate applications are required for activities with different primary areas. This is a map of the non-attainment and affected counties. A copy of this map can be found in Appendix A of the GAFF Request for Grant Applications. I'll refer to that as the RFGA. The following projects are eligible under the GAFF program: purchase or lease of a new motor vehicle that is originally manufactured to operate using alternative fuels or is converted to operate using alternative fuels before the first retail sale of the vehicle. Purchase, lease, or installation of refueling infrastructure or equipment, or the procurement of refueling services for those vehicles. A lease or service agreement must have a term of at least 3 years. If you are purchasing new vehicles, there are several requirements. The vehicles must have been originally manufactured to operate using an alternative fuel or converted to operate on an alternative fuel before the first retail sale. Additionally, the new vehicles must have a dedicated dual or bi-fuel system and have a U.S. EPA rating of at least 75 miles per gallon equivalent or a 75-mile combined city and highway range if the vehicle is electric or a plug-in hybrid. Additional requirements for new vehicles include the following. The vehicle and engine must be new and not subject to a prior first sale. If the vehicle or engine must be converted to operate on an alternative fuel, the conversion process must take place as part of the original sale or lease of the vehicle. The new vehicle may not have been purchased prior to September 1st, 2024. The vehicle and/or engine must be legally imported, if applicable, and certified by the Environmental Protection Agency to the current federal emission standards or a lower family emissions limit. Requirements for replacement vehicles include the following. A grant recipient may not use grant funds under this program to replace a motor vehicle, transit bus, or school bus that operates on an alternative fuel unless the replacement vehicle produces fewer emissions and has greater fuel efficiency than the vehicle being replaced. Please note that if you are replacing a vehicle that currently operates on an alternative fuel, the replacement vehicle must produce fewer emissions and have greater fuel efficiency than the vehicles being replaced. The GAFF program allows applicants to request funding for infrastructure with the following requirements. The infrastructure must be associated with charging or providing alternative fuels to the vehicles included in the application. The number of charging or refueling units may not exceed the number of vehicles included in the application. Applicants must demonstrate that adequate infrastructure or equipment is not available within 5 miles of the location at which the vehicles are stored or primarily used. If purchased, infrastructure or equipment must be owned and operated by the grant recipient or a third-party provider engaged by the grant recipient for at least 3 years. Infrastructure projects are only eligible if your application also includes vehicles that use the same fuel type. The GAFF program has preset grant amounts by vehicle class. Those include $17,000 for Class 1 vehicles, $23,000 for Class 2 and 3 vehicles, $40,000 for Class 4 and 6 vehicles, and $80,000 for Class 7 and 8 vehicles, school buses, and transit buses. Additionally, the grant amount for infrastructure may not exceed 10% of the total predetermined grant amount per application, and the total grant amount plus financial incentives must not exceed the total eligible cost of the project. Eligible costs for the purchase or lease of new vehicles and for infrastructure or refueling equipment are listed here and on the next slide. Please note that a full list of eligible costs can be found in section 3.2 of the Request for Grant Applications, referred to as the RFGA. I will pause for just a minute to give everyone an opportunity to read this slide and the next slide. Again, this is found in section 3.2 of the RFGA. Ineligible costs are listed here and on the next slide. Again, I will pause to give everyone an opportunity to read this slide and the next one. Again, these ineligible costs can be found in Section 3.3 of the RFGA. All applications must be submitted through the SUNS online portal. All required attachments are submitted through the portal as well. Attachments must clearly describe the contents. For example, if you are submitting a W-9 form, simply name the attachment W-9. The online application can only accept 10 activities. If you have more than 10 activities, you can submit a separate application. Applications must be received no later than 5:00 p.m. Central Time on February 5th, 2025. All links will be available on the program website. When using the online application portal, you must complete each section in full before being allowed to move to subsequent sections of the application. Attachments and signatures are required in order to submit the application. TCEQ reserves the right to limit the award to no more than $1 million to a single applicant. You must submit a completed W-9 with your application. Also, if the applicant is not the owner of the property where infrastructure is being proposed, a GAFF supplemental form for property ownership is required. TCEQ staff will evaluate, score, and rank proposals based on information provided in the grant application and the scoring criteria identified on the following slides. Project scores and ranking will be based upon the representations made in the application at the time of application submission. Once selected for a grant, any changes made to the representations in the application that reduce the total project score will make any resulting contracts voidable. Applicants can earn a maximum of 135 points for entity type, with state agencies receiving the most points. 135 points will be awarded for state agencies, 30 points will be awarded for other political subdivisions, and 10 points will be awarded for mass transit or school transportation providers. A maximum of 35 points will be awarded for the project primary area. Points will be assigned based on the primary area of the project. To receive points under this category, each vehicle included in the project application must operate at least 51% of its total annual mileage in the non-attainment area or an affected county. Non-attainment counties will receive 35 points, and affected counties will receive 20 points. While all other counties in Texas are eligible for grant funding, those other counties do not receive points in this category. A maximum of 35 points will be awarded for non-attainment counties. The list of counties shown here can be found in Section 5.1 of the RFGA. A maximum of 20 points will be awarded for affected counties. The list of affected counties shown here can be found in Section 5.1 of the RFGA. Points will be assigned based on emissions reductions demonstrated through the replacement of an existing vehicle with a qualifying vehicle of the same type. To receive points under this category, applicants must agree to destroy the vehicle being replaced. Points will be awarded as follows: 1 point for each Class 1 vehicle, 2 points for each Class 2 or 3 vehicle, 5 points for each Class 4 or 6 vehicle, and 10 points for each Class 7 or 8 vehicle, school bus, or transit bus. A maximum of 20 points can be earned for the number of qualifying vehicles purchased or leased. 1 point for each Class 1 vehicle, 2 points for each Class 2 or 3 vehicle, 5 points for each Class 4 or 6 vehicle, and 10 points for each Class 7 or 8 vehicle, school bus, or transit bus. A maximum of 10 points can be assigned for fleet and refueling infrastructure. 1 point will be assigned for each vehicle served by the refueling infrastructure or equipment. Once an applicant is selected for grant funding, the applicant will be required to sign a contract with TCEQ. The contract's scope of work will detail the approved activities. The contract period will run from the execution date of the contract until August 31st, 2030. Grant recipients commit to taking all actions necessary to ensure the successful completion and operation of the new vehicles and equipment. With regard to payment of grant funds, funding may be awarded through upfront payments or reimbursement. Proof of purchase documentation is required. Grantees must complete all activities and submit proof of purchase documents to TCEQ by April 30th, 2027. And for grantees who are replacing vehicles, they must provide proof of destruction of the old vehicles within 90 days of receiving verification from TCEQ that their proof of purchase documentation has been approved. Grantees are required to maintain grant-funded vehicles, equipment, and infrastructure. Insurance to replace damaged equipment is also required during the contract period. Everything must be in operating condition. Grantees must notify TCEQ in writing within 15 days of any termination or use of destruction during the contract period. If grantees fail to maintain and operate vehicles for the duration of the contract period, they must return all or a pro rata share of grant funds. And grantees must monitor the location and use of the vehicles and refueling equipment and provide information to TCEQ upon request. Additionally, TCEQ and/or the state auditor must have access to records regarding vehicle use. This ends the program information portion of the webinar. Again, my name is Dawn Blosh, and I will now turn it over to my colleague, Jessica Nunez, to present the SUNS online application portion of the webinar. We will open the floor for questions after Jessica presents an overview of the SUNS online application.
Thank you, Dawn. Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Nunez, and I will provide you with a walkthrough of the SUNS online application for GAFF. The slides are pretty self-explanatory, but we think it will be helpful for you to see what the online application looks like. If you have any questions, please write down the slide number, and we will take your questions at the end of the presentation. Please note that these online application instructions are currently available on the GAFF program webpage. The welcome screen shown here will ask for your name and email address. Use the email address where you want to receive confirmation that your application was submitted. Next, select the last item on the list titled Texas Emissions Reduction Plan, then click on New TERP Activity. Be sure to select the GAFF program and click Next. You will be asked to create a password. It is important to note, we are unable to recover or reset your password if you forget it. You will need to start over and create an entirely new application if you forget your password. Don't forget your password. After you create your password, a reference number will be assigned. You can make note of it, but it will also be in the confirmation email you receive when your application is successfully submitted. Enter your password to edit or start an application. When moving through the online application, you will see yellow warning messages if something could be wrong. This is your indicator to double-check what you entered. If you believe the information is correct, you can proceed. Red error messages indicate something is incorrect. You will need to correct your entry. Red asterisks are shown next to mandatory questions. The system will not allow you to proceed without answering those questions. The online application has a very helpful navigation menu. Please note that all sections must be completed in the order shown. You cannot skip around. The application will automatically take you to the next section after the current section is fully complete. Completed sections will be marked as done. Incomplete sections will be marked as to do. You are allowed to exit the application and return later to complete your to-do list. Eligibility criteria will be completed here. You must indicate that you have a fleet of more than 15 on-road vehicles in order to proceed with the application. This slide shows where you will begin adding applicant information. Please note that only certain applicant types will require Social Security numbers, filing charter numbers, and employer ID numbers. More applicant information will be entered here. If you select the option that says one or more individuals own 25% or more of the business entity, you will need to provide those individual names and Social Security numbers. I want to make sure I have everyone's attention now. If you are a third-party preparer, please share your password with the authorized official, or the AO. The authorized official will have to log into the application using the third-party preparer's password. Third-party preparers should make a different password for each application they are assisting. Note, the AO, or authorized official, must type his or her name exactly as the third-party preparer entered it, even if it was entered incorrectly. The AO will have an opportunity to correct a misspelled name. You will continue to add general information here. If you have both a new purchase and a replacement, select Replacement for the project type. If you only have a new purchase, select Purchase for the project type. This slide shows where you will select the emission source, fuel type, and an optional business description. Select your primary area and enter the percentage of time the grant-funded equipment will be in that area. You will use this map to select your primary area. To receive points for the project primary area, the vehicles included in this application must operate at least 51% of its total annual mileage in a non-attainment or affected county. However, all counties in Texas are eligible for GAFF grants. Non-attainment and affected counties are shown here. If you select Other for the primary area, enter the primary county of operation and the percent usage in this county into percent in the other area. Other includes these non-attainment counties: Anderson, Freestone, Howard, Hutchinson, Navarro, Panola, and Titus. Other will also be used for all other counties in Texas. Select appropriate county from the drop-down menu. Select No if you do not have refueling infrastructure, equipment, and services. If you select Yes, you must answer additional questions later in the application. You will indicate whether or not the applicant is the property owner. If the applicant is not the property owner, the GAFF Supplemental Form Property Ownership Certification will be a required attachment. The application will have a list of contracting certifications. Select Agree to certify that you understand and will comply with the listed statements. Here you will indicate whether or not the applicant had any connection with an executive of TCEQ or any other state agency, or whether or not they employed or used the services of an executive with the TCEQ or any other state agency. This next section has additional certifications that applicants must read and agree to. Applicants will be required to review and respond to these certifications regarding use of funds. I want to mention again, if the application is being completed by a third-party preparer, it is important to note that the authorized official must log into SUNS to sign the application. The authorized official will log in using the third-party preparer's password. Authorized officials must type in their names exactly as they were entered by the third-party preparer. If there are any misspellings, the authorized official can make the appropriate edits. Third-party preparers, please use a unique password for each applicant. Information for the designated project representative, or DPR, will be entered here. If the DPR is the same person as the authorized official, you can use the copy feature. Contact information for the third-party preparer is collected here. Property owner contact information is captured here. Applicants will indicate if they are the owner of the property where the infrastructure is being built. If the applicant is not the owner, they must attach a completed property ownership certification form. After all of the contact information has been entered, you will arrive at this screen where you will begin to enter activity information. Predetermined grant amounts per vehicle class are shown here, and your selections will be made on the next screen. You will enter new vehicle information here. You can use the Copy Previous Activity feature if you have multiple activities that are the same. Select Purchase as the activity type if you are purchasing, without replacing, new vehicles and equipment. Information about your activities is continued here. Select Replacement as the activity type if you are purchasing a new vehicle to replace an old vehicle. You will complete this section only if you are applying for refueling infrastructure. The purchase of refueling infrastructure must be made in conjunction with the purchase of a new vehicle within the same application and using the same alternative fuel type. You will continue to enter refueling infrastructure information here. You must enter the physical location of the proposed refueling infrastructure. Information on third-party service providers for refueling infrastructures is collected here. Requested grant amounts for refueling infrastructure is entered here. The amount should not exceed 10% of the total requested grant amount for the vehicles. This slide shows where you will have an opportunity to add attachments. All applicants must upload a completed, signed, and dated IRS Form W-9. Applicants who are not the property owners for refueling infrastructure requests will also upload a completed and signed GAFF property owner form. Once your application is complete, you will electronically sign it. Select the application, click the Sign button, and enter your password. Third-party preparers will electronically sign here. They should then share their password with the authorized official so they can electronically sign the application. Authorized officials will electronically sign here. After your application is submitted, you can view and print it if you choose. You will receive an automatically generated email once your application has been successfully submitted. Please keep this email. It will have a link to where you can access your application. For all program updates, I encourage you to visit the TERP webpage. Click the subscribe button and you can sign up for the TERP Hot Topics email list. This concludes our presentation. Contact information is shown here. We will leave this slide up for your convenience unless someone asks about a specific slide in the presentation. Thank you all so much for your time.